Hello everybody, my name is Christian Swenson, and I make videos here on YouTube about autism, autistic consciousness, and life on the autism spectrum. And it is on YouTube. You know, you are watching me on YouTube. It's a video service, right? You see the little icon? Looks like, I don't know, like this, right? Well, maybe on YouTube you have watched the same videos, the same films, over and over and over and over again. Maybe you did that with DVDs when you were a kid. Maybe you were like, oh, I love watching The Nightmare Before Christmas like me, or Teletubbies, or Barney, or whatever. I'm showing my age a little bit, right? But at the same time, it's a bit weird, isn't it? It's a stereotype, right? Maybe we listen to the same songs, and it's like, why are you doing this? What are you getting out of it? Isn't just the same old thing? Don't you get bored? Are you a robot? It's actually the opposite of that, I would say. Watching the same thing over and over and over is a defense against a world that is overwhelming, chaotic, and unpredictable. In other words, this repetition of media, this overwhelming repetition is a defense against an overwhelming lack of repetition, an overwhelming newness as opposed to an overwhelming oldness. In other words, we could say that watching the same film, the same TV show, the same music video, the same music, playing the same video game, reading the same books over and over and over is a defense of excessive order versus excessive chaos. Right? Excessive chaos. You know, because if we're pulled this way, oh, we're going to drown in this world of overwhelming sights and sounds and smells. We're like, no, we're going to pull back. We're going to watch the same thing every day. That'll get us to this balance point, won't it? Well, it's not just order and chaos. It's predictability versus novelty, actually. Right? Because the world is always new, isn't it? The world is always like, oh, it's like, oh, there's the thing on the thing. I've never seen that thing before. It's like, oh, we're moving today, right? It's like the desk's changed. Why is that thing here? You have a speck on your cheek. There's a ring light on your thing. Look, the chalkboard's the whole world now. You noticed, right? This is a whole thing. Like, autistic people notice everything. We talked about that. I did that in one of my videos on my channel. There's a sense in which autism is the perception and the realization and the taking in of the whole. Everything. And that's terrifying. It can be delightful in limited circumstances, but it's terrifying. And the reason we do this film thing over and over and over is because in a limited circumstance, right, situation, a circumstance you control, novelty is pleasant. It actually is. Because if you control the background, this is another thing, the background of predictability and order, you can have a foreground that gives you safe novelty. And this is the same for everyone. Everyone has a background and a foreground. We just have way too much background. So we have way too much foreground, that's what it is. We have way too much foreground because the world's always new, so we balance it with some consistent background. We want a frame, we want a user interface, we want a heads-up display, right? We want some we want all of that. We want a stim, right? We want something that's there with us all the time that will remind us that the world is the same, that we're the same, that the world hasn't died, that it's not just like dying and being resurrected every moment. No, the world is predictable. The world makes sense, even though it doesn't seem like that often. Background and foreground, it's also obviously, space and time. I mean, not literally, but metaphorically, right? Time is, oh, this year's done and the new year's beginning. This day is done and the new day is beginning. I'm not 19 anymore. I'm 20. Look, there's a 2 at the beginning of my age now. I'm going to have to get used to that. That kind of thing. That repetition, but also the dying and the being reborn in time is something that is overwhelming to us. Time, in other words, change, energy flow, dynamism, all of those things are our adversaries in many ways. I've said that autism is a fear of energy flow, isn't it? Autism is a fear of what we can't predict and what we can't order because it's just too much. Time. That's what time is. Excuse me. That's what time is. Time is the thing that transcends us. It's the thing that transcends any of us, and it can transcend us in a novel wonderful way, but also in a novel, terrifying way, right? And so we watch these films. We watch them over and over and over again because it gives us these things. It gives us a space to stand on, a predictable space, a space that will act as a backdrop, a frame through which we can enjoy everything else. But what's really interesting is that this thing, the film, the camera, how was that invented? It was actually invented by someone who had this same struggle. He wasn't autistic. He was traumatized, for sure. But this guy, his name was actually, I'll see if I can write it right here, Edward Muybridge. He was a British-American photographer who in the year 1860 had a traumatic brain injury due to a runaway stagecoach accident. He was a photographer, and right after this accident, he started to have, drastic personality changes. He had double vision for a while, but then he started photographing these really weird things. Like redwood forests, for instance, redwood forests. Or, I don't know, like a waterfall, or himself perched at the top of a cliff, for instance, right? But it should come as no surprise to you that this actually is a way for him to use photography as a kind of this thing to master this thing. This is the waterfall. This is the redwood forest. This is, all of those things. And he, through photography, would master time. Because time was what traumatized him. He was traumatized by a runaway carriage, runaway horses, When we say run away, we mean fly. Like, fly, you fools. We say time flies, time runs away. Oh, I lost track of time. Well, he's trying to keep track of time by photographing it. And it should come as no surprise to you that Muybridge is most famous for photographing horses. He's the guy that did the thing on that thumbnail from a while ago where he photographs the horse in motion. That's what he called it. It's right here, right? The horse in motion. And he did it to kind of end a debate about, do horses' hooves ever leave the ground? And it turns out, actually, they do, right? Horses' hooves do leave the ground. And it kind of caused a big stir because they're like, can we trust our eyes? And someone actually said, it's like, no, we can't trust these photographs because the photographs are still. And guess what? We see movement. We live in time, and these photographs don't. Well, Muybridge is like, well, hold my beer. He's like, well, guess what? What we're going to do is we're going to put these photographs of these moving horses in a circle, and we're going to project it somehow, and we're going to create a moving picture. We're going to create a moving slow motion picture of the horse in motion. And that's film. That's what that is. That's how cinema started, is someone being traumatized by this and trying to master it with this. That's what this is. That's what film is. That's what TV is. That's what YouTube is it's trying to master this. So no wonder we like it. In many ways, we're like Muybridge. We're overwhelmed by time. Autism, in many ways, is trauma inflicted by time, perpetually, every moment of every day. So we need to fight back. How do we do that? Routine, ritual, predictability. Watching the same playlist, the same film over and over and over gives us soothing feelings, predictable feelings, safe, space feelings. So guess what? Don't be ashamed. Don't ever be ashamed of that. In fact, what I want you to do is to do it more. Do it more than you're doing it. Because when you do that, you will tell yourself that you can trust yourself. And when yourself trusts yourself, then you're going to think, maybe I can dare to have a little bit more of this, to let the horse out a little bit more, the horse of time. And you can dare to feel a little bit more, always knowing you can come back. That's my promise. That's my hope. Take care, everybody. Talk to you guys later.